like when, and the way I compare it to is when you're going through an airport and you're going through nothing to declare, and you're like, all of a sudden like, oh my God, have I bought a goat back? What have I got on me? Have I smuggling a gun? It's that worry that you don't want to say the wrong thing because the worst can happen. Whether you're self-employed or you're running a property business, or maybe you're in a partnership, whatever it might be, wherever you've got that income, you will need to do a self-assessment. Now, for those of you that do it, down with it, you're great at it, also bear with, because there's some changes coming with this. With self-assessments, again, there are some, it's random, there's a couple of questions on there. They're almost like a double negative question and people don't know what to put on it. But I can assure you, it is straightforward. Hi, and welcome to the Breakout Business Podcast, the small business podcast for small businesses. Today we're talking all about bookkeeping. Now, I've done this before, but don't switch off. I promise you it's not that boring. Well, maybe it is, but yeah, I promise you this will help you. You will take something, and if you do, comment, share, let me know. You should take something away from this, because whilst it's not the most exciting, you do not run your business to do bookkeeping unless you're a bookkeeper like me, but you do not run your business to do that. So, however, if you're self-employed, and whether you're self-employed or you're running a property business, or maybe you're in a partnership, whatever it might be, wherever you've got that income and it's not PAYE, then you will need to do a self-assessment. And the reason it's called a self-assessment is because you can do that assessment yourself through the HMRC. Now, for those of you that do it, down with it, you're great at it, also bear with, because there's some changes coming with this. HMRC are putting in Making Tax Digital. So for those that are VAT registered will know that already Making Tax Digital's gone live for VAT returns. That is now coming in for self-assessments. Now, from April 2026, if your turnover, and that's a complete total income, that's not profit, your turnover is over 50k, you will need to do a quarterly tax return and go Making Tax Digital. If your turnover, again, not profit, the total income you take over the 12-month period from April to April is over 30k from April 2027, you will also need to submit Making Tax Digital tax returns quarterly. So I can hear you groan, as I am the bearer of that bad news. And yes, the HMRC have been talking about it for a long time. They've actually moved the dates several times as well. So, but God forbid, love you, HMRC. I mean, you are amazing, I'm sure, but their marketing's not great. But again, that's not what they do, funnily enough. So it is out there, but it's not out there. So you probably have got one of those brown letters. Some of you might not have even opened it because it's like, brown letter, let's ignore that, it's turned a blind eye to it. However, it is important, and it's important to know, because instead of doing that annual tax return that you do, and again, it is a self-assessment, so you should be able to do it yourself, and so many people can. The reason some people don't do it themselves is because there's a lot of questions on that, and it's that if you're that conscious person, you're like, it's a bit like when, and the way I compare it to is when you're going through an airport and you're going through nothing to declare, and you're like, all of a sudden like, oh my God, have I bought a goat back? What have I got on me? Have I smuggling a gun? It's that worry that you don't want to say the wrong thing because the worst can happen. With self-assessments, again, there are some, it's random, there's a couple of questions on there. They're almost like a double negative question and people don't know what to put on it. But I can assure you it is straightforward. One way we help with self-assessments is, well, I say one way, we help with all the ways. So we do everything from a shoebox full of receipts. We go through them all. We put them into a spreadsheet. It could be a shoebox, a Tesco's carrier bag, or a folder. Nice, neat folder, split into months sometimes. We go through that, check all of that. So we've got all the expenses, all the income. We put it on a nice, neat spreadsheet for someone to check over, agree it. We'll compare it to a bank account as well. Side note, really, really important and helpful to have a separate bank account. Doesn't have to be a business bank account if you're self-employed, but it makes all the difference for you to separate your money for the business. So if you can get a separate bank account and then everyone pays into that, then absolute bonus and winner, because all of those transactions are all your business transactions, and it makes life so much easier when you're reconciling that against your receipts or shoebox of receipts or whatever it might be, or spreadsheet once it's been put together. So that's one way we help. We put that spreadsheet together. Now, again, you might do that. I've got clients that do that. They come to me every year with their spreadsheet. We double check the figures and then we put the self-assessment through for them. Again, they sign it off and we do it as an agent. But again, it's another way of having that extra pair of eyes, and I feel all right about that doing it. Again, it is a self-assessment, so you don't need an accountant. Sorry, accountants, but I know a lot of accountants that don't like doing it. They want the chunky limited company stuff. But it is something you can do yourself. But if you can't and you want that extra pair of eyes, another way we help is we sit down, someone's filled it all in, and we literally just go through it with them, sat side by side, check it all over, check the tax return live on the HMRC website on their login, make sure they're happy with it, making sure the figures are right, and then press the button with them. Again, it's a bit of a hand-holding experience, but it's just that reassurance that someone is checking those figures for you, because the worst thing you can do is not put through the right amounts, get caught, have an investigation, or you miss the deadline. Now, for the end of April every year, you have until January the 31st the following year, so a good solid 9 months to put that tax return through. Absolutely fine. Some people do it. However, it can cause an absolute nightmare, because if you decide, right, I'm going to put that through on the 31st of January and you owe tax, that amount is also due on the 31st of January. So the way I work with clients, I encourage them to do it as soon as possible after the 6th of April, because ideally, and I hope you've been doing this if you're self-employed, you've been putting through at least 25% of your income aside into like a little tax pot. For those of you, we bank with Monzo, and a lot of the newer bank accounts do it. Every time someone pays us, 25% of that goes into a tax pot. So I know that money's there for when that bill comes in. So you can do the same. So if you're putting that aside, absolutely brilliant. You file your self-assessment, you know how much you've got to pay, you can sleep again because you've done it for another year, but you've got 9 months to pay it. So if you haven't put that money aside, you've still got 9 months to earn and put more money aside to pay that. The sticking point in that, and one time that people get caught out, is the first time you submit a self-employment tax return or self-assessment. Because on self-employment, brilliant for us, obviously, have to also pay a year ahead, which is delightful. So, when I'm explaining it to people, they're like, oh, don't you get like 12 grand free from tax? Which you do. So, I don't need to put the 25% on. Well, actually, technically, no, you don't. However, one of the things you need to be aware of is when that bill comes through and that calculation comes through, say for argument's sake, for ease of maths, you've earned £24,000 this year. So your earnings, so your actual take-home income profit, not turnover, so the profit you've made in your business is £24,000. That's not that you've taken £24,000 and actually I've only taken 12 into my personal account. When you're self-employed, it's that whole entire profit. That's what you're taxed on. And that's taken into account that maybe your turnover was £30,000, but you've taken £6,000 in expenses. So your actual profit is £24,000. So then, easy maths, that you've got your 12 and a half, 12,590, I think it is now. I might be wrong on that, or you might be listening to this on the wrong year. But you've taken out, for ease of maths, 12 grand. So you've got 12 grand, the first 12 grand you're not taxed on. The second 12 grand is what you're taxed on. So then for that, you might say, okay, well, I'm taxed on that. Again, for my ease of maths, 20%. I'm going to exclude national insurance at the moment because again, we have to pay 2-class national insurance. So, which is running at 6% this year. I think last year it was 9%. So this is where I get my magic figure of 25% from. So then you've earned, or your taxable income is 12 grand. So let's say that's 20%. So 20% on that is 2,400. So brilliant. I've submitted my tax return. My profit was 24. I've taken off my 12. I'm going to have to pay 2.5 grand tax. Fine. However, you've also got that national insurance. On average, let's say for mine, that's 5%. So straight away, you've got another £600 on that. Okay, so we've got £3,000. So our tax and national insurance bill is £3,000. Brilliant. I put aside my 25%. So actually, I've got 25% on the £24,000. So I've actually got more than enough to pay that. Not a problem. However, we then have to pay 50% of the next year up front. So we've got that £3 grand tax bill due on the 31st of January, but also £1,500 for next year. We have to prepay our tax. So unlike PAYE, when you're employed, you are taxed every month on whatever you earn. We get to pay it in advance. Yay for self-employment. Brilliant. I'm not selling it well, am I? But honestly, it's so for me. So then you pay the other £1,500 on the 31st of July that year as well. So while you have got over a year to pay the balance in, and then that year after you pay the next year and the next year, and so then you don't pay 2 years at once ever again, because you're ahead of the game at that point. But it's one thing that catches people out quite regularly. So it's something to really be aware of. And one of those things that you might have started off, bookkeeping, it's not fun. But it's really, really important, because the worst thing you can do is get stung. Yes, they do payment plans. Yes, you can choose when to pay it in some respects, but there is interest on that as well. The other thing is, if you don't submit your tax return by the 31st of January, which you have got 9 months, so it's really, really important that you do submit it, you get a £100 fine. And then again, the interest on what that might be. So it's really important, because it's hard enough to be self-employed as it is. We have a lot of outgoings and what we need to do. But at the moment, that's what we need to do to get that money in. And it's brilliant. But the more you make, obviously, the more you have to put aside for tax reasons. So if you can do that, absolutely brilliant. So what we've done, we've got all our receipts together, we've got all our expenses, we've got all our income, because whether you've invoiced out, or maybe you've got a Stripe account, your online sales, or a card reader, whatever it might be, all that income goes into that one pot, and then the expenses go into one pot. And they're the two figures you need. So at the moment, oversimplifying it, but yes, you need two figures. If you've bought equipment, a car, etc., there's a whole nother part to fill in. But if it's as simple as I've taken this and I've paid out that, they're the figures you need for your self-assessment. However, in 2 years, if you earn over, or your turnover is over 30k, you will need to, a year now, you will need to submit that quarterly. So it's really important that you're aware of that and prepared for that. So the other thing is you will need accounting software to do that. So the best place to go on, whenever you're talking or looking at self-assessment, what you can claim, what you're putting through on income, how it works, just go to the HMRC Gov website. Sometimes it's a bit hard to find, but to be honest, 90% of the time you can find what you're looking for. You can find an answer, and actually that's what they're going to refer to is right. So as usual, when you Google, loads of blog posts come up, loads of different information. Just stick to the Gov website and the HMRC website. There is no point looking at someone else's site. That's where they'll have got the information from anyway, and that includes our site as well. And what I'm saying now, I will always send you links, and if you ring me with a question, that's the site I will use and where I'll find stuff. So also on there, it will tell you a list of compatible software that you can use for making tax digital to do your self-assessment on a quarterly basis. So again, very, very important. So when you go through, and that's not just to say there is a spreadsheet, I think it's called Sheets 123 or something, but there is a spreadsheet version, so you can still fill in a spreadsheet and upload it. However, there's also the option of buying one of the account software packages. So that could be QuickBooks, Xero, Sage. I think it's Free Agent. There's a couple that come free with bank accounts. That there again, just check they're compatible, and it comes with what you're used to using. I use Sage, QuickBooks, and Xero for a lot of my clients, so I know a lot of how they work. At the moment, I would say a lot of my clients that use that is because they use it for invoicing purposes. So even if maybe you're a tradesman and you use Tradeify, that links through, the invoices link through to one of the software. So you're not duplicating work. You don't have to raise an invoice here and then raise an invoice over there. So not one on whether it's paper, PDF, whatever it is, or Tradeify. It all links through. So you have it all straight away on your accounting software. And again, that's really, really important. The thing is with all this software, it links up to your bank account. So remember me going back on my side note of getting one bank account specifically for your business. That is why, because if you link that up with that software, it will take all the transactions anyway. So even if you're not invoicing through that software, you can still have all your transactions. So when you're very, very simply on some of those, on all of the software, they'll import all your transactions on your bank account and then you categorize them. I'm talking very basic, not VAT registered, but straight away you can categorize them into sales. So all of your income you put down as sales, then the software adds it up and says, brilliant, £30,000 in sales, and that's your figure. But also it will link through, so you'll be able to set it up and link it through with your government gateway user ID and password. Again, when you set up as self-employed, very important to save those two things. Do not lose them. Yes, you can request a new one, but they now email you the code. They didn't used to. You had to write it down, take a picture of it. Save that email address and put government gateway ID and password. That's really, really important because that will link through and how you report your self-assessment. So make sure you've got those, because when Making Tax Digital goes live for self-assessments, that's what you'll be using to link, if you have any software whatsoever, through to. Unfortunately, whether you agree with it or not, it's one of those things, and you will have to put everything through it. Then it will make life so much easier, because the unfortunate thing for those of us that don't use it already, it is another cost. And that's the sad thing. The government, don't make it easy for us being self-employed, but it's an additional cost for that software. They're all on offer at the moment because they know it's coming, but there is a monthly cost to that. So whether you use an accountant, a bookkeeper, a friend, a relative, the other half, whoever does your books, they need to be aware of this change because it will be quarterly. If they're doing it for you, absolutely brilliant, absolutely fine, not a problem. It will just be the same process. It will just be quarterly rather than annually. So it's really, really important to just be aware of that coming through. But at the moment this year, it will still be annual. It will still be next April. So if you've not reported or not submitted your tax return already, then put it through. The sooner you do it, the better, because as I say, maybe your CIS, those that in construction will know what I'm talking about, because then you'll get a refund. Hopefully, then you will, on the flip side of that also, so whether you're CIS or whether you've just earned normally, so you know how much you're going to be charged and how much you'll need to pay on the 31st of January. So as I say now, we're in May, so we've still got a lot of time, but it's really, really important for you to put through as soon as possible. One other thing we do is training courses. So if you have got someone that wants to do it or learn how to do it, or maybe you want to learn to do it yourself, get in touch. We've got a course for it. We can sit and go through. We try and do a lot of these on one-to-one basis, just because obviously we're talking about people's income and expenditure, so it's fully confidential. But again, it's something, as I say, we can sit and handhold you through that to make sure. If some people, and we've got plenty of clients that do it, they prefer to use an accountant. And again, it's just that. It's no right or wrong way. It's just that, I feel better because someone's looked at it. Again, the accountant will do the same with the figures. They'll always all of us get you to sign your figures off because we don't know. It's like through petty cash. Some people use cash still. So we have we call it a float, petty cash float. So we still use it as a tin. All the software, again, you can set up a little petty cash category. So on that is a tin. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely fine. But we take all of that into account as well. So we make sure all the income's on there, because ultimately, as long as you've reported it all, and especially if you're in a very cash rich industry, it's important to have on there. So, but again, we can talk you through all of that. We can tell you what to do with it. The thing on the running the business, and one thing we do teach, is that it's great to do it, whether it's on a monthly, or for some of our VAT clients, we do things on a quarterly basis, but to make sure it's done regularly. So you know where you're at with your business, how much you've got, because you don't know what your 5-year plan will be, whether you want to sell the business, whether how your business is doing. So you always want that slush fund for the quiet times, for holidays, for sickness, because as we know, us self-employed people, if we don't work, we don't get paid. So you always want to know where you are, and that's really, really important when you're excluding some trades where it's CIS, because it feels a bit like PAYE, so you know what you're getting. However, where it's true self-employment and you're going out and looking for work, it's really, really good to know where you are. So again, whether that is on a spreadsheet, whether it's using software, whatever it might be. So have a think. Let me know. We help people set up. We can help people register on the HMRC website. We go through, we've got ticky lists, to-do lists of what you need to do step by step. And as I say, we run I call them courses, but really it's just a sat one-to-one to just go through that process. So you've got the dates, what you need to do when, what records you need to keep, and how you need to record it. But ultimately, the main points are to have a separate bank account, to put 25% of all your income aside, and to make a note that you will have to make the dates of you will have to submit as soon as possible after the 6th of April, but also before the 31st of January that year. It was really, really important. So send this to someone who you think might be feeling in a bit of a mess, scared of it, because it is one reason why people don't set up and go self-employed, because it's just scary. And while the HMRC website's good, it can be a bit of a minefield as well. So again, it can be quite scary, but don't let that put you off. So have a read through, or get in touch and let us know, because as I say, we can help every step of the way to get you going, or ongoing if you need it, just so you know you've got peace of mind, you know where you are. And the last thing anyone wants are big scary bills or penalties as well. So thanks for listening as always. Let us know, keep in touch, let us know what you think. This is the podcast for the small business podcast for small businesses, so share it with someone that you know runs a small business. Again, I'm sorry, I have tried to keep it short because it is about bookkeeping, but it is a really, really important thing. So thanks for listening, and subscribe for more tips and tricks soon. There is so much more we can go through in terms of how to set up a business and what to do. But if you've got any questions, get in touch with us. We're always here to help, because honestly, we really, really hope this is all free information, and it will really, really help someone set up a business and really live the life that they want to live, and give them the time and make the money that they need to make their business a success. So as always, for a small business podcast, like and subscribe, because that massively helps us. Leave us a review, and as always, get in touch if you need us, because we're always here for you. Thanks for listening.